coral load increases, you will find that you'll get to a point where it can't keep up, especially when that coralline algae starts to grow. It's a monster for sucking things out of the water. Additives. There are separate additives. The cost really isn't too bad. Just a downside, a little bit more testing to make sure you don't do a little bit too much of this or that. But in time, once you've tested a few times, you'll start to learn and see trends on your tank. 2 parts. They are expensive. They're the most convenient. It's kind of up to you to decide, do you want to use the corals that you grow maybe to offset that cost? I know some farmers use 2 parts and mix up their own. If you mix up your own, it'll be cheaper. Some farmers use the 2-part because when things get crazy, they can trust the 2-part more to help balance it out. They don't have to do as much testing. They don't have to use as much labor or require someone who may not be as familiar on testing and to adjust depending on who they do hire. We can look at growth rates. In '97, this 3-inch coral, and in 2002 it went over 16 inches. This coral was fragged well over 50 times, some of which were up to baseball size. So you can get high rate even in a short amount of time. This Euphilia grew out of a rock in '96, and by 2000 went over 23 heads. This Monopora grew 19 by 24. This Acropora cervicornis. Now this picture was taken on the side of the tank, and the side of the tank is 6 foot by 6 foot. So that coral that you're seeing in there was a little bit larger than what you would expect by just looking at a picture at an aquarium. It's well over 30 inches around. This facility, they do have a problem with it overgrowing and being able to find places to get rid of it. If you have a permit to keep Atlantic coral, you can contact them. It's the Smithsonian in Fort Pierce. They will give you, I guarantee, as much as you can handle. They call me all the time saying, do you know anybody else? Do you know anybody else? It is quite amusing that an endangered coral, we've got to the point where it can be a problem in your system. Here, 04, this 3-inch tort to the left. By 06, went to 9 inches. Just under 3 years, went over 14 inches. So it can be done if you're testing, you're monitoring. If you love your corals, you will be doing a little bit more testing, a little bit more maintenance and things. You will get results like this. I tell you, I see it all the time with aquarists. They get excited. Some see my big coral, and they give you the time frame, and I say, I bet you love your tank, you test it, you take care of it. It is possible. Many people do it. Here, I'm going to go into some questions as far as things to kind of spark your mind, maybe retouch on a few things. A lot of these questions will be basically general. I'll tell you some of these answers, there's more than one answer to it. A lot of people try to get into, okay, there's only one thing that's wrong, I need to find out what went wrong in my tank. Again, we're trying to do the biggest ecosystem in the world. It may not be one thing that just went wrong with your tank. It may be a little bit of this and that, and it adds up to one big boo-boo. What level will calcium max out if your magnesium ends up being below 1,000 parts per million? The correct answer is, and that again will depend on what magnesium level it is at. If your magnesium level is at just below 1,000, 350 parts per million seems to be the number that I always get in questions. Why can't I get my calcium over 350? I keep dumping and dumping stuff in. I ask them, what is your magnesium level? The majority of them come back and say, oh, it's about 1,000 parts per million. 350 is about the max that you're going to end up getting, and it seems so consistent. You'll be surprised how many times it does happen. Now, if it were to go to 300, I don't know. That's possible. If someone were to get a magnesium level that low, I don't know if you could get to that point where 300 would be your max. 400, no. 550, definitely not. What will it max out to if your alkalinity runs between 2.5 to 4.5 with a magnesium level of 1250, and 1250 is natural seawater? Basically 550. Luckily, Mother Nature helps us out in that fact that the alkalinity will help suppress the calcium, and 550 generally is the max of what you're going to get, unless you start getting in the ranges where your alkalinity is much lower than around 2. If your pH is low and you keep adding buffer, nothing seems to help. What is wrong? I urge you, do not keep dosing. Find out what is wrong. You can really mess up a tank if you don't know what's wrong and you keep thinking that chemicals are the answer. B, add more pumps, possibly. Today, we don't see that happen. Early 80s, yes, that tended to be more something that would happen. And the reason for that is C is the most correct answer and the more often answer. There's a CO2 level that is too high, and generally it's too high in the house. Adding more fish, definitely adding more inhabitants that will use more oxygen and will not help you. If your calcium is 750 and your alkalinity is 3.5, what's going on here? Calcium's too high, do a water change. Yes, that may be the case, but let's look at that 750 number. It's kind of odd. B is generally the more correct answer, and it could be from a faulty test kit. And I say that because of the fact that you already know that your alkalinity is at 3.5, and providing that is a correct number. C, dose more buffers. Now, dosing more buffers is not going to help your calcium. You don't really need to if your alkalinity is at 3.5. It's in the correct range. D, everything is good. No, not everything necessarily is good. It's not good because of the fact that if you're getting that number and think everything is great, you need to go back and do a little bit more checking, because if you think that everything is fine, it may not be fine. There may be a problem with either one of your test kits. Calcium 550 parts per million, alkalinity at 2. Should you keep adding calcium? No. Calcium could be pushing down your alkalinity. Add more buffers. Yes, you're probably going to add more buffers to the system to bring it up. Add more calcium? No, I wouldn't necessarily recommend adding more calcium, because that could be the problem. Your calcium could be driving down your alkalinity. D, add more pumps? No, a pump is not going to help you. Calcium at 350, alkalinity at 4. Well, it's possible that your magnesium could be too low, because we don't have your magnesium number, we don't know. So grab a test kit and test. Add more buffer? No, you're already in a fine range. Add more calcium? Yes, but definitely pick up that test kit and see if it's a magnesium issue. No, adding a pump will not help. Calcium at 350, alkalinity at 3.5, magnesium at 1150. You just did a 50% water change and you can't get the calcium to go up. A, add strontium to help? You could. Strontium is so close to magnesium that corals can use strontium over calcium if there's a problem with the calcium being low. Add more calcium, yes, but let's try to find out what's going on here. Obviously, you just did a 50% water change and the calcium didn't go up. Add more buffer? No, generally not going to need to add more buffer. D is probably the most likely. Ask yourself if you adjusted your salt water before you put it in, because the salt water could have been at a low calcium to start with and a low magnesium to start with. Calcium at 425, alkalinity at 4, magnesium at 1350, but the pH is 7.8. Adding more buffer, no. Your alkalinity is already fine. Adding more buffer will not help you. It can hurt you. B, adding more calcium. You could if you want, but really 425 parts per million is perfectly fine. C, check to see if you have a CO2 issue. Yes, this is most likely your biggest issue. D, add a pump. Yes, it is possible, but more likely C would be the correct answer. Calcium at 350 parts per million, alkalinity at 6.5 milliequivalents, magnesium at 1250. Add more calcium. Yes, you could add more calcium, and that would help. Add more buffers, absolutely not. Do a water change. Yes, a water change would help because you would be lowering your alkalinity and raising your calcium, providing you adjusted things before. Do not try to swing it fast. D, you have a CO2 issue. No, we wouldn't know that. We don't see any.